we're crafty people. We'll just make our own thing. So being broke, we went to Home Depot and got some aluminum extrusion.
Where is the limit of a stock car? Like you've seen it, right? Because like now people are, it's like, do you need to build an expedition vehicle to go camping with your family and have fun? The answer is no.
We've even put cars on roofs, like to prove the point, right?
Yeah, I've seen some of those videos.
Yeah.
You guys stacked?
We stacked a Miata, 2,700 pounds. This is what it came out to.
Well, let's get it started then. We are back at another episode here with the Free Spirit podcast, and we've got a new guest in house. We've got Will from Sherpa. We're pumped that you're here and spend some time with us and talk about whatever we want to talk about. It's an open platform, and we think it'll be really good to hear your guys' insight and people just to get to hear our conversation. I think we have some good ones, and so we'll kind of get going and see what happens here and have a little fun here. So yeah, welcome to the podcast. You're the second one in here.
Sweet. This is my first one, so we'll see how I do.
Perfect. It'll go great. Let's start off with the basics. We've already kind of talked to people about how Tanner and I got started in the business, but I think it's cool. We're both, what are you, 28, 27, 28?
27.
How you got into business, how you got started, and what's your story? Tell us your story.
I always joke around when people ask me this, and I tell them we started by accident. But really, it was Alex and I. He was in high school. I had been in college for a year or so, and we just started camping. We were just using our trucks and doing the normal thing. After we started, doing it for long enough, we decided we needed to step up and get some rooftop tents. That was the cool thing, and for us, that was a major milestone.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any racks for it, so we went out and we started looking. We had third-gen 4Runners at the time. There was not a whole lot of people making stuff for third-gen 4Runners.
What year was this?
So it's a 96 to 2002. I had a 96 and he had an 01, and we were making. This was in 2016.
Okay.
And so nobody was making them for our trucks. We reached out to some people. Nobody wanted to do it. And we're like, okay, well, we're crafty people. We'll just make our own thing. So being broke, we went to Home Depot and got some aluminum extrusion or some angle and a small little tiny sheet of aluminum that we could afford. And then ordered our crossbars off of 80/20's website at the time.
Hell yeah.
And went for it. We spent a couple of weekends in a row making our first roof rack in his parents' driveway in a conifer, and put them on the trucks. We thought we were like the coolest people ever. We figured out how to like save all this money and make our first roof racks. And we spent that summer, like we both got rooftop tents. We were going out every weekend using these things, and just beating the crap out of them. Well, eventually, it broke,
Okay.
and so we made some extra parts to fix it, and we learned what didn't work. And
All still from Home Depot?
Yeah, all still from Home Depot. Our
Sick.
first mounts, we were cutting electrical conduit. It was like the metal pieces that you use on the wall to attach an electrical box, and we would just chop them into little sections, but didn't work. But people were trying to buy these things from us, and there wasn't anything good for the third-gen 4Runners, and it had a little bit of a unique look at the time too, and so we sat down and we were talking about it, and we're like, man, if people are trying to buy these things, we want to be cool, we want to be exclusive, but if people are trying to buy it, what would we actually make? Like, what's the ultimate roof rack for us? And we had looked at what was already going on with the aluminum rack industry at the time, and it left a little bit to be desired. And so we were like, okay, let's make it stronger. We're using these things every weekend. We can't ever have it break again.
Yeah.
And tents were getting heavier at the time. That was kind of the getting bigger. Yeah. There was a lot of progression. Hard shell tents were kind of like becoming the new thing. Yeah. Yep. So we're like, we want this. We don't want to have to make another one again. That was our first approach to it. We found out it's expensive to make a roof rack the right way, and there's a reason we couldn't afford a lot of the racks.
Well, so Alex was in high school and you were in college?
Yeah, it was the senior year for him, and I want to say I was a sophomore.
Okay.
In college, and so I had a little bit of a design background. I was in architecture school. That's what I was originally.
That's right.
That was the original plan, and so I was like, hey, I'll use what I know, like limited knowledge of computer software and all of that, and let's just make one, you know. So we did some renderings of what it would look like, sent it off to a shop to get them cut, and we found out 5 of these things fit on a sheet. It was perfect, you know. So we're like, well, we'll just sell the other 3. And we wanted it to look professional, and we didn't think anybody would buy it. So I did these renderings, like I was saying, and we sent them out to some people on Facebook, and we're like, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Would you buy it?
Yeah.
And people were all about it. So we set up a website to collect the money, and then, you know, the orders kept coming because we didn't turn it off.
Yep.
And so Alex and I sat down one weekend, and we were like, hey, maybe we should just do this on the side and make a little money. And
Heck yeah.
It started growing, and then, you know, we were doing it out of his dorm college house up in Fort Collins. He was at CSU at that point. It was that was probably around 2017, 2018. He had, you know, started his freshman year of college.
Okay.
We were making him out of his apartment there, dorm room kind of thing. So it all started, but he met Hayden, who then came into the picture, and you've met Hayden, I think. And he had the engineering background.
Okay.
So that was when he really dove in. And
so you kind of had the eye. Hayden kind of had the engineering background, and Alex was just like you're the main man that was doing it all the time, or?
Yeah, Alex and I were, so Alex's background was in more of the marketing side. He understood cameras and video and all of that. I did photos, and that's kind of how we connected, was traveling and doing pictures.
Okay, cool.
And so, you know, we were more on the artistic side of things. I really enjoyed the business component.
Yep.
But we were missing this engineering and the manufacturing component.
Yeah.
We were doing a lot of things ourselves, but we didn't really know what we were doing at the time. And so Hayden brought a lot of that to the table.
Okay,
so we each kind of had the perfect combination of like crossover in the right areas.
Absolutely.
For the business to succeed.
It's kind of not a cool kind of transition point, but like the podcast is kind of open for any conversation, anything we want to talk about. And one of the things, you being young, I've got you by 10 years, but I still feel young, and that's kind of just part of life. But entrepreneurship, and like you guys just going for it, and like this is actually how it happens. Like it doesn't take millions and millions of dollars. It takes an idea born out of necessity, fixing a problem, something that you're passionate about. And that's like how businesses start and form. And then, you know, your passion drives you through all the low periods and the times you want to quit. But like, you guys did this as a side job. Now you guys are full time. You guys got a lot of employees, a great business. So like, what was it about entrepreneurship for the 3 of you that was like, I don't ever want to work for anybody else?
Yeah, you know, I think for me, I had kind of seen this path of, you know, I always ended up working for somebody, and I would get just so excited about wherever I was working. It didn't really matter so much what it was, but I really liked trying to push the team forward and increase like what we were doing there, just bring a higher quality of what we were doing. And a lot of times as an entry-level employee, like approaching the boss and be like, we need to change the whole company, you know?
Out of here.
Yeah, exactly. So it was, hey, go back to your spot, you know, keep doing your thing. And so that was always kind of in my mind. And I had just, you know, graduated, and I started working in architecture. And I started to do that with my boss there. And he sat me down and had a conversation. I was like, look, dude, like, this is who you are. You need to go try it. You know, and if it doesn't work out, we always have a spot here. But I think that like push was exactly what I needed to hear.
Somebody kicking you off the ledge.
And having an entrepreneur himself, like a business owner, and be like, hey, you're at the perfect time in your life to go take a risk and try something. But I'm so grateful that I did. You know, for all of us, it was just, we were in so deep. That's the only way I can describe it. Like every day it was like, man, this is just it. This is so much fun. Even the problems, they seem so complex, but it was fun solving them together.
For sure.
And, you know, it was great timing for both Hayden and Alex. You know, Hayden was coming out of school. Alex was kind of in school. You really
thinking about getting out of
he
school.
was like, man, like the business is so much more fun than doing this whole school thing. But you know, that nudge was everything we needed. And, you know, certainly there's so many highs and lows, and it's all over the place. It's not easy, but like you said, I think the passion and excitement for like what you're doing and the product, and then the team that comes and goes, like, just getting to meet new people like every day, it makes it worthwhile.
It's one of the cool, I mean, you know me well, like the people are why I'm into it. Like this is where I have a lot of fun, like getting to sit down with you or coming up to the shop or meeting you out on the road like we were in Moab and stopping and just getting the chance to talk, because it seems it's always about the people. No matter what you're doing, there's the people have got to be there, right? So you guys all do a really good job of it, and love your guys' team. Sorry. What about in your guys' business kind of history? Are you guys rolling with a mentor? You guys got somebody that you look up to, and how important that is?
Yeah, I mean, mentorship's been everything for us. As you know, I would say a very young team. There for a long time, our oldest employee was still under the age of 30, like for years. And so for us, it was about like, how do we get the right mentorship or read the right books or whatever it might be. You know, I was very fortunate. My buddy, you know, against me, you know, telling him what I wanted, he set me up with a friend of his who had been kind of guiding him along in business, and somebody that really understood things. He set me up with a lunch meeting with him, and I just got to sit down and ask another entrepreneur questions for like the first time, you know? And that was big for me.
It's eye-opening.
It was addicting to an extent of like being able to tap into that knowledge and experience. And after that meeting, it was just, man, we got to continue. I need a mentor. I need somebody that can guide us through this. And he actually came in and has done so much for guiding us in the business and teaching us every day.
Well, you guys have been, I mean, you guys have been growing like crazy, and you guys have to deal with multiple vehicles, the changing of the vehicles. You guys have probably a more complex business than what we do. And so like we've always said, and it's always kind of one of those important things that in the entrepreneurship side of it is having a mentor, taking the leap and kind of going for it. You guys, I think, are a really good testament. Like, do it when you're in college. Do it, you know, start something out of a necessity that's your passion, and look where you guys are today. It's pretty cool.
Well, and I think the thing for us too that we found really early on in doing all of this was in-house manufacturing was a huge thing for us, huge find. We always felt so dependent on other people to produce our stuff, and we couldn't like control certain things. And it was really the lead times. You know, our business, we hired our first employee right before COVID started. And so it was just the whole time we're learning how to combat this crazy industry growth, on top of now trying to do, you know, was in-house manufacturing the way to solve that time lag, you know, to produce the volume that we needed. And we ended up accidentally cutting our first sheet of aluminum on our CNC router at the time, that we'd only ever done wood before, and it hooked us. And so a lot of that, like trying to find mentorship, actually has come through that manufacturing growth. You know, what's the right stuff to buy, understanding capital on a larger scale, how to get into a building, and going through, like, we had never purchased a home, and we were buying our first commercial property, and it was a very interesting experience. But, you know, for us, diving into that was so exciting. And now, like, we own that, and we can start to help other companies here, you know, in the U.S., like small businesses, manufacture their own stuff. And
I think that's one, to bring it back to entrepreneurship and the whole mentor side of it. Like, now you're set up, like you're that guy. I mean, like, you and I talk about it all the time. You guys have experienced things we haven't. So it'd be cool as you continue to grow in your future. Like, there's going to be people that are knocking on your door, and you're going to know how important that was when somebody did it for you. So I mean, you and I both, we could talk about this for hours, probably.
Definitely.
Just entrepreneurship. But I want to talk a little bit about your guys' company too. You guys are local here in Colorado. You guys are natives of Colorado, and, you know, you've been here, done it, seen it all. Tell us a little bit where you're at, where people can find you guys, and you got a shop up in Berthoud, is that right?
Yeah, so we're in Berthoud. It's 30 minutes or so north of downtown Denver. It's not super far, but you know, for us, it's been the perfect place to grow as a company. We're plugged in the community there. It's fun being a part of Colorado. Colorado just has a very unique business culture to it to begin with. And we've done everything we can to just like plug right into that.
Yeah, you guys have had great events and
we love hosting open houses or just industry related events. We're hoping to actually expand that this year to more customer facing things, across the country. But at our home base, we're definitely trying to do as much as possible and get people in, show people who we are, get people familiar with product. But for us as a company, Sherpa's always tried to have a culture to it.
Yeah.
We don't believe in just building a company. We want to have culture and community and
for sure
genuine conversations and try and push things forward. So
well, and that's where the
Berthoud's the hub of that. Yeah.
Well, it's growing like crazy up there, and you guys have got a great facility and doing all your manufacturing in-house. Like, it's something to see. Like, when I came to your guys' facility and I was like, wait, how long, what are you doing? It's like, that's a really, really cool side of it to see. And then probably, going forward from there, you and I talked a lot about like innovation and maybe, what are we seeing in the industry, or maybe just overlanding is just a part of it, right? So like Free Spirit's about hunting. You guys have the race team. You guys are kind of trying to get outside of, maybe not outside of overlanding, but there's so many more people to service. And like, what do you guys see on that? Like, you guys have got the race team. Tell us about the race team. Yeah.
So the race team's been a fun thing for us. I think when it first started, Alex and I just liked the idea of racing. That's actually, I drug him to King of the Hammers, was one of the first races that I took him to shoot pictures. We were doing media and for some teams. We were out there and we just saw that there was a huge marketing opportunity in that space. People didn't know how to talk about product. And we were kind of looking at the overland industry and we're like, man, there's a lot of people building stuff, but nobody's testing it. This could be a perfect platform for us to test our product.
Test it, go as fast as we can.
What if we, and then you're standing around in the desert and you're like, what if we threw a rooftop tent on a truck and we went mob through the desert? Would that really prove who we are? And so it actually fed into our culture at Sherpa of like putting our money where our mouth is. That's a big deal to us. And so we dove into racing, and it's been a blast. Like, it's so great to be there and see, brands that have been labeled as overlanding, meeting with the people on the rock crawler side of things. And so our car has been that perfect meeting point for them. Everybody just wants their stuff tested at the end of the day. Everybody wants to prove a point, and especially people that are building quality. Like, that's what it's all about. So. For us, the racing program has grown and it's grown fast, and we're competitive. We've been getting solid podium finishes.
Awesome.
And proving out a IFS platform, like, that's a big deal too.
So when like we've talked about this before, but like when I think racing, like I told you, the car over here on the way over, it's like the dude that I saw the Instagram video, and he's like, this kind of racing, and it's like, hey man, you ready for the race? And he's like, I'm hitting the pedal as hard as I possibly can. I'm either seeing the finish line or God, one of the two. But like, there are different levels to this racing. There's not just like 180 mile an hour just flying. There's different categories.
So the series that we're in is called Ultra 4. It's actually a mixture of desert racing. So people be familiar with like the Baja 1000 or something like that, where you're just doing flat out 100 mile an hour through big holes and all that. So there's 100 or so miles at King of the Hammers. That's that. Okay. And then there's 30 to 50 miles. Depends. Every year the course changes, but it's 30 to 50 miles of some of the toughest rock trails in the country is the idea. Okay. And so we race in what's called the 4600 stock class. So they're full body vehicles, just like the soccer moms that drive. How do you build a 4Runner? How do you build a Jeep Grand Cherokee? Or how do you build a Wrangler, or whatever it might be? And now we race against Broncos. That's the big one. But you're pushing this car in both worlds. So
in a stock
form.
Fashion.
You're limited to a 35-inch tire, and there's suspension limitations. You can't cut any holes in the body and all that. So, it's funny, like we always get questions from everybody of how much lift is on this, or how big are those tires? And it's like, okay, well, it's relatable for people,
Well, I think that's one of the, so let's transition, because I want to pick off of that on the difference between in the industry. So like, let's go speed racing, desert racing, you throw in rock crawling, you throw in overlanding. And I think some of that is like camping, and then you're getting into a sport and a real like activity that you're doing. But where is the limit of a stock car? Like you've seen it, right? Because like now people are, it's like, do you need to build an expedition vehicle to go camping with your family and have fun? The answer is no.
Yeah,
They're
totally.
very capable stock. So like, what have you seen? Like,
So I think for us, the thing that has been mind-blowing is actually just how capable those stock vehicles are. We got our new 4th Gen Tacoma, and all we did was we put some sliders on it and armor, and we did a little bit of tire stuff,
lipstick on
but no suspension or anything like that, nothing crazy. We're trying to keep it pretty tame. And we went out and just wheeled it in Moab and had a great time. And what we're finding is it really is all about the person driving it. Like if people spent more time just getting out, getting used to the vehicle and just exploring and having an adventure, you will be shocked.
You'll learn a lot along the way.
What you're capable of and what your vehicle's capable of. You don't need big tires and crazy suspension.
The vehicle's probably more capable than what our minds will let us do.
Absolutely.
Like we get more nervous about breaking our vehicle or hurting it.
Yeah.
That's experience behind the wheel and which line you take and what you do. But I always find it fascinating, even like when we're in Moab, like we're driving around some of these big trucks, and then it's all of a sudden it's like, what are you doing here? Like, how did you get here in that Camry? You know what I mean? It's like they can go much farther than what people think, and we love supporting all the build shops. We're not saying you don't have to put a suspension on, but like what a vehicle can do stock from Toyota is like more than most people are comfortable with.
One of my favorite stories I had heard was somebody, they went wheeling out in Moab, and they thought they were doing this crazy hard trail and everything, and they were all proud of themselves. But then they got to the top, and there was a Bentley SUV at the top of this trail. And all we could get through our minds was like, man, the depreciation on that alone of driving that thing up there. But it just shows like, you can get things anywhere.
Yeah, you can go places.
So,
I think that's cool. It's part of the adventure, and you're not going to know everything right out the gates. I mean, I don't proclaim myself as a technical off-roader. I'm a diehard hunter. I love fly fishing, and like my truck gets me everywhere I need to go. And I've gotten in some bad spots, but I'm not trying to get myself into bad spots. It's like I'm figuring out along the way. And I think that's people sometimes get nervous, especially if you're a new camper, to just get out there and try it. Like, you don't need a camp spot. You go in dispersed camping. Like, you kind of figure that stuff out, and then it's pretty easy for people.
Yeah, I mean, I have people ask me all the time. They're like, what campground are you going to go to and all of that? And I'm like, we just haven't done that in so long. We have a lot of dogs, and so it's kind of inconvenient and stuff. But for us, it's just once you get used to going and finding those spots and you're out there, it's a totally different experience. Like being away from the guy right next door to you, it's having some room to get that quiet space. And certainly as we're looking at the industry just as a whole, overlanding kind of has a bad rap to it. It really is car camping. Yeah. Like it's car camping with some fancy stuff. It's vehicle sustained travel, right?
Yeah.
But, as we're looking ahead, for us, it's how do we support the hunters? How do we support the fly fishers that just want to go out and do an extended day trip, or a couple days or whatever? They need a tent. They need an awning to hang out in and really be able to have a vehicle support their hobby. That's the way we're looking at it now going forward is it's not just about overlanding.
Yeah, I completely
and we got to
agree.
get away from that, to some extent. It's nice to have a title for an industry. Yeah. But really, there's a whole segment of people out there, for us.
That's what I think you see it similar to I do. I always tell people that Colorado, like I'm not a native. I've lived here for a while now, but like the coolest part about Colorado to me is it's the coexistence of complete opposites, right? So you've got all these hunters, the outdoorsmen that they pay all the tags, they pay all the fees, they do all this different stuff to support, our public lands. And there's a lot of things that go on there. But like Colorado's now running commercials where like they're outwardly supporting the hunting and fishing community because, hey, it gives back so much to our public lands that like, you want to go camping, you want to go sightseeing, like don't kick those dudes off the trail. Like they're paying fees, they're helping the way. I think that's really cool, but I think you see it in the same way I do, is that like everyone's important, whether you're bouldering, whether you're like, I think endurance races, these long distance trail races, there's so many things that people can do in the state of Colorado that we can't list them all on this podcast of the activities that people do, that their vehicle takes them to.
Yeah.
And then it goes into health and wellness. Why do you feel good out there? Like we always say, like, oh, we need a break. You know, it's like you go camping for a night.
That's the reset.
It's the best reset you can get. So we'll have people on the podcast that talk about why that is from a neurological level. I'm going to have some friends on from my medical device days of just kind of knowing, working in that world of like what happens. So like we want to be an avenue, you know, as you talked, for like other sports, other things that people are doing. We want to be like kind of an avenue of like, why do you feel so damn good when you get back from sleeping outside? Like what happens to you?
Well, I did part of architecture school. Sometimes you go off the deep end for design projects. And one of those things was I was trying to find a natural way to help people that have ADD and ADHD, or people that are high stress and anxiety. And one of the things that I found was in all this research, it's actually nature. And they've done studies of like being in the trees or being in a green space. It has the same properties as taking like ADHD medication for kids.
We're not doctors.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
We're just going to
not medical advice, not medical advice.
Total
but anyways,
medical home testing.
But anyways, I think some people would argue there's just inevitable truth to like being out in nature. People feel that energy, and what it found was, it was there. So I built a whole project about how could you get people touching grass and having trees around and things like that. As
then you started
around.
A rat company.
Yeah. But
but
really it's fed into that mindset. Like we share that, and that like for us, it's about getting people to that. Yeah. It's about, hey, let us take all that worry and stress of like what's going to happen with your stuff, whether it's your tent or your camera gear or whatever it is. Yeah. Like we'll Sherpa that for you. We'll take that off your back. You just worry about your trip. Yep. You focus on nature. You focus on the trees or whatever you're doing. You're hunting, you're fishing. Yeah. And just get out there, because for us too, the more people that are out there using the public lands respectfully, you have to add that.
Pick up your trash.
Pick up your trash. Know what you're doing before you go out there. Yeah. Do a little research. It doesn't take that long. But respectful use of that is what keeps all that open to us. And you'll just have a great appreciation for where you're at.
Exactly. So I think that's a huge thing. And like it's one of my probably most favorite things about it is when people get outside, they sit around a campfire. That's how we made all of our friends. That's how I got into the industry when I first moved to Colorado that I was in before. I was in construction and hail damage stuff, and that was all from me camping, sitting around a fire, meeting people on the trail. I've met a ton of people while I've been out hunting. Like it just, you find those commonalities in people, and then it's like there is not a disconnected world that we live in. You got to go find your people, right? Yeah. There's a community there.
Yeah, and you separate from the politics and the things that are going on in the world and the crazy news stories and all of that, and it's just quiet. Yeah. Starlink's kind of changing a little bit of that.
Pretty tight.
It's a love-hate thing, right? But like, there's something truly special about getting away from that and just being people again.
I completely agree. So we probably going to get another night under the stars sometime soon and get our brains out of the bright lights and in front of cameras and stuff like that so we can relax and come up with more ideas. But let's take a little mini break here and then we'll get back to it. We want to talk a little bit more about product and then maybe close this thing out, see where we're at. And
sweet.
We might have to do it again. People may want us to talk a little longer. So
love to.
We'll see. Let's take a little break. Going to address a few more topics here after a break. We needed to get another high noon and some more water to finish this bad boy off. But we're going to talk a little bit in this kind of second part, and we want you guys to throw questions at us. If you guys have questions for Will, put them down in the comments. If you guys want us to talk about anything else, I don't know. Has this sucked so much you don't want to come back and maybe do another one?
I love this kind of thing.
Let us know if you guys want us to talk more about anything, particularly. But we're going to kind of dive into some innovation and then look at Sherpa's products a little more in depth and talk about how do our two brands kind of tie together and why. So, let's talk a little bit about product. Let's just dive into Sherpa. Like, you guys are our favorite rack. You guys built one for the Sequoia before a show, so you guys have touched a lot of different vehicles, a lot of different a lot of different makes and models and stuff like that. But what stands out to you is like the big thing in racks that like everybody should know?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for us is, I've touched on it already, but it really comes down to the quality of the rack itself, the materials, and that sort of thing. It's one thing to have a rack that'll hold your product when it's in a parking lot or you're just driving on a simple dirt road, but it's what happens when you're just on a dirt road, or so you thought, and then the road takes a little bit of a turn.
Yeah.
And you're bashing it around and you have something heavy there. You need to know that that's not going to be an issue. And for a lot of people, our industry doesn't have a lot of like standardized testing for things.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's how do you start to measure that, right? We get the question a lot of like, well, how much load capacity do I need on a rack?
Yeah.
Like what's the point of that? This one looks the same. They all look the same, but I mean, obviously there's some little changes here and there, but really it does come down to like how it's made. You need to know that if you have a nice tent on your rack, that's an investment, right?
Yeah.
You need to know it's going to be there and not have to worry about it. Just have fun and have a good time. And so when we look at designing our racks, we design it for the extreme use case scenario. It's not just,
that's where the racing team
That's where the racing, we proved it, right? Like we've done a 200-mile race with a rooftop tent.
Yeah.
Like nobody's going to beat that like in their personal vehicle, at least hopefully. If not, they should come race with us.
Yeah, come on, let's do it.
But it's, for us, looking at the load ratings from the manufacturer, you've got the standard bars that are out there. You've got a 2-bar plastic system from Toyota per se, or first, let's just say Subaru, whoever it is. Those are usually in that 120 to 180 pound range.
Almost worthless.
Yeah. And when you look at the forces of, a tent going down the highway or cases on the highway, wind hitting it, things bouncing around when you're going back and forth between potholes or holes in the road, that all adds up. That's that dynamic load capacity is what you'll hear our industry call it. There's static and there's dynamic.
Yeah,
dynamic
you
is...
want to crush it for
yeah,
us?
let's do it.
Let's just crush static and dynamic.
So dynamic load capacity, which is what you'll most commonly see advertised, like from a vehicle manufacturer or a roof rack company, that's when the vehicle's in motion. Whenever you're going down the highway or you're on a trail, dynamic load capacity.
Would you agree that no, I don't want to cut you off. I want you to let you go here. But on that dynamic, would you say that in the most extreme circumstances, like when your life flashes in front of your eyes, that's when that stuff matters? Like when you're going to slam on the brakes, when you're going to get hit by somebody else, when you're going to hit a bump at like way too fast of speeds, that's when dynamic and all this weight comes in.
That's, at least from my understanding, I'm not an engineer, I'll say, but from my understanding, dynamic is really when the vehicle's in motion. But where the product quality really counts is in that situation. When you do slam on the brakes, you don't want that tent flying through somebody's, back window.
Over the top of your hood.
Or hurting your family or your the ones you care about. You just don't ever want to end up there. And that's what we test for, and that's what we rate our products for, is that extreme use case. Like we've even put cars on roofs, like to prove the point, right?
Yeah, I've seen some of those videos.
Yeah.
You guys stacked.
We stacked a Miata, 2,700 pounds. This is what it came out to. It was 2 people in a Miata on top of our roof rack, and for us, that was testing we originally did it to test our rubber seals in our product. We don't use silicone, so that's what that was. Granted, it was a static load situation with that. So static is anytime your vehicle's not in motion. So that's when you're at camp, you're setting up your rooftop tent, your whole family's going to climb in, or throw the dog in there too, that kind of thing. That's what that static capacity is.
Do you guys have static or dynamic differences between your lower profile and your heavier duty rack? Do those differ?
Yeah, so for us, we do. So we have our Peak Series and our Sports Series product. We started to look at there are people that do just want to throw some cases or a fly rod or their gun cases or whatever on the roof.
Or it just makes their vehicle look cooler.
Yeah, or just, status.
Status, man.
Status. It's all about status.
It's part of the look. That's overland.
Yeah, exactly. Sporty. So, we have our Sport line product. That's going to have a lower dynamic load capacity, but you're still in that same static range. And the reason for that is when we looked at designing that product line, we weren't willing to compromise on the mounting structure. Okay. So the mounts for that product are the exact same as our Peak Series. Where you get the change is in our side plates themselves. So you're a little bit thinner on the side. You switch the alloy. You go from a 6,000 series aluminum to a 5,000 series aluminum. 5,000 series is designed to have, it's bendable. That's what most people are making aluminum brackets out of that are bent into a shape.
Okay.
You can feel the difference. And where that comes into play is on a rooftop tent, when you're on a trail and you get a lot of that like side to side motion, you have a deflection in that side piece. And so that's where you really want to have the rigidity of like our Peak Series product. But Sport Series, once again, great for the average person if they're not going out and not really using it. But
would that be more like your, we say soccer moms, baseball parents, like people that are active in their kids' lives of like, taking things to a ballpark.
Throw some chairs. Throw some chairs on the roof. Yeah, exactly.
It's crossing over, and then Peak Series is more like, hey, if you're going to put a Free Spirit tent up there or an iCamper or some other brand's tent up there, Peak Series is kind of where you want to be, not in the Sport Series. It's kind of what you guys recommend to people too.
Yeah, and like especially now as we're seeing, like we see the Peak Series product line as the perfect thing for people that are going out and doing multiple hobbies at one time. So like I was talking about earlier, if you want to go on a 2-day or 3-day fly fishing trip, you're going to hit the best spots in Colorado. You're going to then have a tent, and then you're going to use something like our fly rod mounts to have your fly rod off the side of your truck. Yeah. Well, now you're not only just doing a tent, it's all the other things that are going along with it.
Exactly.
And you're hanging stuff off the side. Like that adds a lot to a rack.
What do you, the stuff hanging off the side, or like let's use an awning and those dynamic and static stuff. Do you guys think a lot about that, or is it straight top down? How does the stuff on the sides play a difference in those weight ratings? And if this is more of an engineering question,
it is a little bit more of an engineering question, but for us, we tend to do more testing in both in a sim in the computer for engineering, and then also just physical testing. Like before we release anything, we're out there for hundreds of miles using this stuff. Yeah. Like we believe in that. And it's hard to say. Like when we originally started making roof racks, we weren't so much thinking about all the stuff that was on the sides. That's really, we're seeing the industry change, right? Yeah. And we want to support that. And now it's like, okay, as we're looking ahead at future product, how does that start to inform what we're doing? It's all about the sides now.
Yeah.
It's all about how people are interacting with their tents and interacting with their accessories and their awnings and all of that. Like that's where it's all at.
Yep. So you guys are looking at more attachments, different, whether it's a paddleboard or it's a bike, that's kind of where the evolution of Sherpa is starting to look is like, hey, we've got overlanding, but we've got mountain bikers that are technically overlanders too. All of these people are in the same demographic. They may not be doing expeditions, which I think is more along like the line that overlanders get put into this more expedition vehicle stuff. And it's like, I'm a weekend camper. Like I'm going out, taking my dogs out. We're just getting out of the house, getting away from the city for a couple nights. We're not driving to Alaska. We're not surviving or living out of our vehicles all the time. So there's kind of two there. And I like that you guys are really starting to look at all of it.
Yeah, the normal people.
Yeah.
Not that
you guys
overlanders aren't normal, but like
we're all kind of weird. We all got our little. Very weird. Anybody wants to go break their vehicle and then go fix it just for fun is, for me, I'm like, all right, I get it. You're a little out there.
Yeah, but it's just like, how do you make that more accessible for everyone is the way we're talking about it, right? And all these products, they have a interface, I guess let's call it, right? Like tents have a specific way of mounting to trucks, awnings have a specific way of mounting to trucks, bikes and all and whatnot. For us, it's about changing our perspective of like, how do we just be an extension of your vehicle itself? Your vehicle is just a vessel for getting you where you want to go, right?
Yep.
We just want to we want to plug into that. We just
want to be a part of it.
And we want to just be an adapter, so to speak, for all of the things that you're trying to go do, whoever you are.
And you guys obviously have, we get this question a lot of like, does it fit? Is it compatible with this rack or that rack? And it's like, for you guys, I want you guys to hear from Will, like you guys are thinking about rooftop tents, like we are a part of your guys' thought process. And so whether it's a Free Spirit tent or other tents, we land on the lighter scope of rooftop tents. We've kind of always been light, fast, you know, landing in the middle, the sweet spot. We're not super heavy. We're not ultra light.
The right amount of function.
The right amount of weight. So you guys are already thinking about that. Is there anything that you guys are doing maybe different that the other rack companies are doing to make our lives easier when we install rooftop tents?
Yeah. So honestly, this conversation comes up so much for us internally, especially as we're looking at like designing new product. You know, there's a lot of ways you can make racks stronger. Some of those, though, start to really limit the way you can mount tents or accessories to the product itself, to the point of just pure frustration. Like we don't ever want to go backwards in customer experience, right? And so when we look at, you know, tents, yes, we're thinking about how tents mount, right? Yeah. Like that's super important to us. If you can't use your rooftop tent or you can't use whatever product, then what's the point of us being there? You should just get rid of us, right?
Right.
And so we're checking all the tents. We're using the tents, I guess, is really where it is for us. But yeah, it's going to work with your rooftop tent.
Sweet. Well, I think it's good for people to know because you're being in it. There's a lot of things that we understand doing this every day for the last 10 years. You guys have been going since 17. So you guys 17. Are getting up there too.
Year 7. Here in July, you know? July is year 7. So
that's awesome. That's from where you guys start. Like, it's just such a cool entrepreneurial story that like 2 kids, you know, walking into Home Depot and just out of necessity. And now you guys are full in your career, doing it full time, employing a bunch of people. Like, it's one of the coolest
we're
parts of it.
26 people now. So
that's awesome. Everybody's in Colorado?
Yeah, everybody's here. Well, sorry, we have one person that's in New Jersey remote, but everybody else is here. So
awesome. Well, I kind of want to wrap this up because you and I can go down rabbit holes for a really long time about this, and I'm sure we're gonna have you, and we should probably get Alex here and get Hayden here and just have a round table probably about this kind of stuff. But Tanner and I obviously got into this industry and our whole family for a reason, and it really was things that we didn't forget. So my question to you, kind of to wrap up our podcast, is like, is there a favorite childhood memory that you can remember that like either provoked your interest in this industry, or like if you were talking to yourself when you were a little kid, like you'll never forget this? Like, can we say something to the parents? You know, what's your favorite childhood memory of?
Yeah, definitely the one that got me hooked on all of this. You know, my family lived in Texas for a while, and I would just look forward to coming up here to Colorado for the summers. That was just how I got away. And one summer, I came up here, landed at the airport. Grandparents picked me up. My uncle was there. We drove straight from the airport to the mountains and did a camping trip with my cousins and I. And on that trip, it was like the most life-changing thing. We were making bows and arrows out of sticks, and we learned to fish. And really, for me, coming from a life in the city, more or less, to this place where I could be a boy or whatever you want to call it, and just like be adventurous and do the things I always saw in movies. It changed me. And so every summer it was just, how do I get back to that? How do I get back to that? Coming back here, moving here is like, how do I get back to that? Right? Oh, a vehicle. We started wheeling. We started doing Jeeps and all of that. And then one thing led to another.
Stuck.
Yeah. It just, even now to this day, it's just, I'm just constantly chasing that same thing. It's just so great.
Feeling, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
It's contagious, and it adds a perspective to your life.
Yeah. I remember the same. It's weird. I had same story. Like we grew up in Nebraska, and you know, so we were in the Midwest. We were outdoors people, you know, but it's like 100 degrees and humid, so you're not doing a lot of camping. But my parents would ship us out here, and my grandparents lived in Parker at the time, and I remember the same thing. Like my grandparents would pick us up. We'd go to, what's the Mexican restaurant where they dive off the cliffs? Casa Bonita. Like I remember going there, and then I remember my grandpa taking us to wherever the place you get like the big bison burgers in Evergreen, or
Ted's
elk burgers.
Montana?
Yeah, Ted's Montana. Maybe.
Okay.
I can't remember. Never forget those things, but like I remember things as like a 6-year-old kid that he didn't remember. Like, and I'd be like telling him stories. Remember when you took us up and we'd go fly fishing, and it was just little creeks, and he's like, dude, I don't know if I ever took you fly fishing like that. And I'm like, I know we did. Like if we went to that spot, I'd remember. So it's like the things you remember as a kid, like I don't remember necessarily the Disney trips. Or I don't remember, like, I remember being in the woods, being scared in a tent with my little brother, wondering if something was going to come and eat us, or what was that stick breaking. But
or the crazy storms or something.
Yeah. You know, it's just something as a kid you'll never get. So I kind of want to challenge all the parents out there of like, I'm 37, you're 27. A lot of parents out there are our age, but like, we never forgot it. Other kids never forget it. Most of this whole community was doing it as a kid. So like, skip the vacation, skip the city vacation, like head out to the mountains.
You know, I think the thing too is looking at just kids younger. They're not really getting outside like they used to. And it's like, how can you, if you're talking to parents, like how can you facilitate that experience for them? Make it something good.
Yeah.
You know, make it a good trip. Make it a good, positive experience.
Well, how can our companies facilitate you in being able to do that? If you don't know how to do it and you're like,
we'll help you bridge that gap.
We'll give you spots to go take the kids out and have a blast. So like, I don't have any kids, but it's near and dear to my heart because of the memories, right?
Yeah.
And why I'm now professionally doing what I am. It's because my dad took me hunting and fishing when I was a kid, or camping. Absolutely. And it was just that deal. So thanks for sharing your story and telling us about Sherpa. And guys, if you have any questions about Sherpa, they've got an awesome team up there in Berthoud. And if you're local in Colorado, check out one of the events. We're huge fans of Sherpa and Will and his entire team. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll have to do this thing again.
Let's do it.
That's another episode. Thanks for watching. We'll be back again next week, and we'll have another guest. So thanks for watching.